to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have with us Matt Stephenson, who is the CEO and co-founder of Code to College, an Austin, Texas-based nonprofit that is building a national network of diverse, college-going technical talent. Through its skills-based volunteer-driven program model, high school students who are primarily Black, Brown, and girls develop coding and professional skills, gain exposure to a variety of STEM industries through case competitions and workshops, and build competence, confidence, and a deep network through mentorship, relationships with industry volunteers. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Simone.
Absolutely. So, how did you get there? I mean, this sounds like something my daughter would love, but she's 9, so we have a little time. So, how did you get this inspiration to do this business?
Thank you again for having me, Simone. I love telling my story because I feel like it resonates for so many and for so many reasons. But when I was in high school and about to graduate, one of the elders in my church asked me what I planned to study in college. I was going to go explore my undergraduate studies at NYU, and she said, what are you going to study? And I said, business. And she said, do computers. Now, you know, this is audio, but I've got quite a bit of gray in my beard. And so this was about 25 years ago, a little bit over 25 years ago. And at that time, I had no clue what do computers meant. We had a computer at my house, and we had access to the internet, but other than that, I had no idea what she meant by that. But following what she said, pursued a double major in both finance and information systems, and it changed my life. I learned how to
Mm.
code my first semester of college. I picked up several side jobs, probably about three or four, from working in the computer lab to working for a local startup to doing some coding projects as well, and was able to parlay that into an equities research internship with Deutsche Bank. And I secured that role again thanks to my coding background. And I made a great deal of money. It was more money than anyone in my class was making at their internships, if they even had them. And in fact, I made so much that I was able to pay off my half of my college expenses before graduating. And in addition to that, ended up landing my first full-time role at Goldman Sachs. And it just really instilled and reinforced in me this belief that, you know, you can learn how to code and it will open just incredible doors of opportunity for you. And so, that was over 20 years ago at the time, but I really wanted to commit my life to ensuring that students who looked like me and who otherwise didn't have that level of access could do so by learning how to code.
I love that story. I have an associate's degree in data processing. When I first went to school, I liked computers. And I will say that computers changed my life as well because I have a bachelor's in marketing and associates in data processing. But that door just unlocked and took me down a very different journey in my career. So love, love, love the story. What did you want to be when you were growing up before the elder?
So but before the famed conversation with the elders, so it's funny. I think so many kids initially say that they want to be a doctor, and I was no different. And I had said that I wanted to be that morphed into I wanted to become a physical therapist, and I wanted to explore and learn more about what that might look like. So I was on the track team, and our trainer let me shadow him because I shared with him what I was aspiring to become, and learned after sitting down next to him for half of basketball, um, while he waited for someone to get hurt, that maybe I didn't want to become a physical therapist. And after that, I just started to look into other careers. But I will say after that game, I was kind of lost for a bit and thought, what is going to allow me the opportunity to make a lot of money with the least amount of school. And that's how I landed in business eventually.
Hmm. And why was money important to you at that time?
Well, I would say that I was never left for want growing up. I my parents, they immigrated from Jamaica in the 60s, and while we weren't upper class by any means, there was something about what education could unlock and what making money could unlock for my family and economic mobility and building a path of generational wealth and also really fulfilling the dreams of my own, which I think a lot aligned with my parents, which was they came here for opportunity, and that's really what when I was younger, I saw opportunity to mean. Opportunity means you can make a lot of money and then it could transform your life.
Hmm. I resonate so much with that. I am also from Jamaica. My mom came here in the 70s, and it's definitely a game changer. So let me ask, this show is about being in the driver's seat in your career, and that means really hands-on, intentional, in terms of your career growth trajectory. When would you say that you realized that you were in the driver's seat for your career?
I feel like I've been in the driver's seat of my career since I was a kid.
Hmm.
And I say that because my career, my professional career has not been linear, and I don't think many people have a linear career, but I also think that if you were to rewind prior to Code to College, you would wonder, wait, where is he going? After graduating and going to Goldman and working for an investment bank, then I moved to a nonprofit that placed undergraduate students of color into front office roles at banks. So, finance, then nonprofit, then I went to Wharton for business school, and then I became a high school math teacher, right? Not at all the typical path. And so I think looking back now, it seems as though, well, all of this was ordained or you had intended on this because you have the finance background, you have the nonprofit background, particularly within internship program management. You've got the high school math and sort of educator lens. So you've been able to build lesson plans when you first getting Code to College up off the ground. I mean, like you have all of these incredible experiences that feed into what you're doing right now. So that was all planned, right? And people do actually ask me that at this point, and I say no. I went with where I one identified what I was good at, and two what I liked doing. And when you can find that intersection, that is just a really powerful combination. And honestly, I will say a formula for happiness and fulfillment. You can find out what you're really good at and find out where your passion lies or what you're excited about. Like that's what I call not having to work a day in your life. People say if you enjoy what you do, it's like you can enjoy what you do, but if you're not good at it, you might not be doing it for that long. And I feel like I've had that experimental and iterative mindset since I was a child. I tried a lot of things. I tried soccer, didn't like it. I tried violin, didn't like it. Tried clarinet, didn't like it. Um, I tried karate, liked it for a little bit. Did judo for a long time. Um, and I did not like math, but was told that I was good at it. So then I said, all right, I guess I like math then. And so I invested a lot of my time and efforts into math and learning and understanding math and taking upper level math and eventually, calculus and getting really invested in economics and learning about economics. And then I got invested in learning about the capital markets, in particular the stock market. And so um, I was very comfortable with saying, I tried it, it's not for me, I'm going to try something else. And I think for some people, that can feel discouraging. Whereas I felt like I'm going to be doing this probably for the rest of my life because as a human, I'm dynamic. We're all dynamic. We're learning. We are shaped and formed by our experiences, by our interactions, and we grow and our tastes change, our sensibilities change. And finding the joy in that, I feel, has really put me in the driver's seat. But I've been doing that since I was a child.
Mm, powerful. When does it click for those listeners who are thinking, yeah, I'm in an exploratory phase and trying different things to get clarity? When does it click where the pieces of the puzzle come together and you say to yourself, aha, this is it, Code to College, here we go.
Having that community behind you is a big part of that. When I think about every step of of my path and trajectory and success, none of it had to do with me. All glory given to God, and all thanks shared with the many friends and family who inspired me and pushed me to do any number of things. My the very first startup that I launched was in college, and I did it with my best friend, and that gave me my first true taste of entrepreneurship. Past sort of selling things that I made in the house and selling lemonade on the street. Um, my one of my first getting into Goldman, that was an introduction from one of my buddies, actually, who was best man at my wedding. Um, for that referral, you know. Of course, I went through the 2 rounds on my own, but he was the one who referred me. Um, Working at that nonprofit, that was another referral from my best friend. Um, there's a community around me who went to Wharton and said, you know what, I think that this is the place for you. I stayed with my buddy when I was visiting. I had friends who reviewed my resumes when I was applying. Um, when it comes to entering teaching, that was something that my sister encouraged me. She said, "You love tutoring and you love working with students and kids. So why don't you look at that?" And as much as I resisted and said, "No, I'm a finance guy."
Don't tell me what to
Um,
do.
I don't, yeah, it's like this is about making money. Um, uh, I did it and I loved it, and it's the hardest job that I've ever had to date. And people say, but you mean after Goldman? I said, no, no. Teaching was absolutely physically, mentally, emotionally the hardest role that I've ever held. And it's my community who supported me, who encouraged me, who oftentimes were the ones who opened the doors to ensure that I got in and worked in these incredible life-changing and formative roles. So when you ask, when does the click come in? I think the click comes in because there are people around me who, at every step of the way, encouraged me to these positive pivots. And the ultimate one was my wife, because she said to me when I was sort of languishing in my role prior to Code to College, she said, "You're working these crazy hours. Why don't you do something that you love, which is that idea that you told me about when we first started dating? Why don't you do that thing?" And that thing was and is Code to College.
Mm, I love that story. So you've told us about community, the power of community, the power of education, and the power of saying yes, because you were saying yes to all these things that you've got this powerful advisory. community behind you, but you have to say yes and you have to do the work. So saying yes, I feel like we're building your formula here. So tell me, what is your formula based on all these experiences that you've had? What is your formula for successfully owning your career?
Yeah, so I think owning your career means just what you said, knowing when to say yes and saying yes more than you say no. I think about the times when I say no far more than the times when I said yes. It's like that old saying that you'll regret more of the things that you didn't do than you did do, and it's absolutely true. Um, One of the big areas there, it's sort of thematic, is that I've said no to travel. I would say to anyone listening, never say no to travel. Travel is has restorative powers. Travel opens up your eyes. It helps you build your network, helps you build your experience. I think a lot of the challenges that we face as human beings is because people are not well traveled. When you have the opportunity to meet people who are not like you, who don't look like you, who don't speak like you, who don't think like you, that opens up your mind. And I think a lot of the challenges that we face, especially in 2025, are because people need to get outside of what's familiar. And so, saying yes is a really important part of that formula. I think having a plan is really important. And so it's this interesting sort of dichotomy of, you can map things out and the best laid plans, but you also have to be open because life comes at you quick and life is unexpected. And just because you've made the plan doesn't mean that things are going to go according to it. So I do think plan and being intentional and thoughtful and pursuing things is one part of it. And then also um, being open to what life puts in front of you is another. I would also say I've heard this a lot recently, and I really like it. It's a pretty simple saying, but if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Mm.
And it also reminds me of success is it's like 99 parts preparation, one part luck, or one part opportunity. And so if you were just ready for that opportunity, then I mean, you just never know. Like I said, you never know what life's going to bring your way. And so I would say those are really the keys I believe to success is I'll break it down. Have a plan, be open to what life brings you, and stay ready.
Mm, mm. Love that because
I'll
you
add one.
struck.
I'll add one more,
Okay.
and maybe this goes along with the second one of be ready for what life brings your way or be open to it. Is that it's work is just what you do so that you can live. It's not
Mm.
the other way around.
Powerful nuggets. Let me ask you because you began with travel when we started this question. So, are we seeing Code to College in Jamaica?
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I was actually just there at the end of last year, and there is a growing community of technologists down there in the Caribbean in general, and in particular in Jamaica. And I would love to find some way to bring the work that we're doing down there. So
Mm.
uh, I'm going to be open to what life puts in front of me. We'll see. We'll see. And hopefully we could work it into the plans as well.
Awesome, awesome. I will be watching. So, let me ask you, as you think about your career journey, what are some resources that have been very helpful to you to grow in your career?
So I love to read and I'm thankfully getting back into it now. Our whole family is and turn off the TV. Just like Kendrick said, turn off the TV. Um, in fact, and Jeff Bezos does this as well, but the first hour that he he is awake. His first wakeful hour, no screens. So no TV, no phone. I just did it today for the first time, and I actually feel tons more energy rather than, you know, turning on CNBC or anything else or doom scrolling. What's the news today? I picked up my book, a book that I haven't read in a while, that I will attribute as one of the resources called Thinking Strategically. It's just a great book. A lot of it has to do with game theory, but it's great for negotiations, great for business, great for personal interactions and engagement as well. And there's another book by one of my old professors, Adam Grant, called Give and Take. I like a lot of sort of social dynamics and psychology books. Um, and then in terms of resources, podcasts are also fantastic to listen to. I've been out of rotation for a while, but there are a few that I like to listen to that were focused on VC investing and startups and business. Um, I like the daily when I can listen to it as well on New York Times, just so I can stay abreast of news that I may not have otherwise heard of. And then your network is your greatest resource. And I
Mhm.
think so many of us think, well, I don't have a network. How do I build a network? And it's like, if you know people, you have a network, and never underestimate your network. There's so much that they have to share with you in terms of knowledge, skills, their own respective networks, and connections. And also people are more open to welcoming you in than most of us give them credit for. I love when I'm out with a group of people that I know and somebody who is new just approaches us and introduces themselves. Because 10 times out of 10, unless it's like we're having a very serious conversation and it's not for sort of the public, I mean, most of the time we'll say welcome on in and we'll start to engage that person. And so I want to encourage anyone hearing this, like take a chance. Take a chance on people. People are far more willing to welcome you in than you may realize. And one of the things that I used to do not often enough was to reach out to people on Twitter. People are super, I don't know if it's still the case. People were super accessible on Twitter. I mean, celebrities, CEOs, they respond. I remember the quickest turnaround I ever had was with this startup CEO who I'd been following for a long time. She didn't know who I was. And I wanted to approach her about taking interns from Code to College. So I sent her a DM and we had a Zoom call that same day, like 2 or 3 hours later, to talk about it. They didn't take interns, but still, she she was ready. She engaged in a call. Like it doesn't matter if she took the interns, she took the call. She took the
Yeah,
call. Like that was the
we take the
important
point.
part. Yeah. And so I encourage people to be bold. Be bold. Like I cannot tell you how many leaders are out there and they it's not that they're necessarily just waiting for someone to reach out to them, but they are far more impressed than you can imagine when somebody says, "Hey, look, I would love a moment of your time. I'd love to speak about this. I've been following you and I appreciate what have to say, what you've said about that, and these are my questions." They're going to say, "Man, this person really has it together. Absolutely, I would love to help."
Mhm. I love how you give us a script, a framework, and a real life example. What do you say to the person who's saying, well, how do I make that initial reach, the initial conversation? How do I keep the relationship going? Because part of the network or community building is cultivating your network. So how do you give us some tips to build up the network, and then also, we can wander back over to asking because you want to ask your network for support.
So I'm horrible at this and I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, but following up with people is so important. Um, if you manage to, and whoever's listening and they do this, I'm sure that they will, if you manage to get someone's attention and they
Mhm.
respond, follow up with them, especially if you've asked for something, whether it was an introduction, if you've asked for advice, if you've asked for money, follow up with them so they know what the result was. If they made an introduction to somebody who was going to help you with a business plan and you connected with them and they were great, let them know. If they gave you some advice and it whether it turned out well or not, like let them know. I would say if it didn't turn out well, you can still just maybe just thank them for it as opposed to letting them know that it didn't go out well. But I mean, that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, which is if somebody they think that if they've reached out to somebody who is maybe in their view higher status than them, they think it's a one and done and that person never wants to hear from them again. Quite the opposite. If they've taken the time to speak to you, they are now invested and they want to hear the follow-up. So let them know. And if it's something that's a little bit more longer term or long form, and maybe you won't realize the results or the gains for 6 months, 9 months, a year, then just reach out, just drop them a note every month. Say, hey, listen, no need to reply. Just wanted to give you an update. Um, the birds won, go birds, right? Like, or just a little something because it shows that this isn't transactional, right?
Mm.
It shows that you care about them and you're grateful. And I mean, depending on who you're speaking to, they may say, well, yeah, that is transactional. They're giving you something and you're following up because it makes them feel better. It's like, okay, well, fine. Then it's transactional. At least you're holding up your end of the bargain and you're not taking. You're not just taking, you're also giving.
Mm, love that. Going back to that book that you referred to by Adam Grant. It's been so wonderful to have you on the show, Matt. We've got so many gems, so many resources. Can you please tell our listeners how they can stay connected with you if they'd like to do so?
Absolutely. So, Code to College, we are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Code CODE, the number two, College COLLEGE. You can also find us on our website, code the number two college.org, where you can find out more information about our program, see some of our impact, our reporting as well. And otherwise, you can also sign up for our newsletter on that site, which goes out on a monthly basis to all of our champions. And then if you know me and you're hearing this, feel free to send me a LinkedIn connection if we're not already connected.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career, Matt Stephenson.
Thanks for having me, Simone.
You're very welcome.
That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen, and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. Keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.